2 years of finger pointing.
I'm not buying that you didn't know about any of this until October 2015.
2 years of pleading for a basic human necessity.
We want clean water.
2 years of tough questions.
Have you ever given any thought ever to resigning?
What does the future hold for Mid-Michigan's largest city and the people who are drinking water poisoned with lead? TV5 presents a special town hall discussion. The Flint water crisis, looking to the future.
An infamous anniversary, not just for the city of Flint, but for all of Michigan. Day 731 of the Flint water crisis.
It was 2 years ago today. That's when the switch was flipped, and the city began using the water in its own town instead of buying it from Detroit.
But what was supposed to be a turning point for the city turned into a health emergency, affecting tens of thousands of people, engulfing the Snyder administration and leading to criminal charges against 3 people.
Now, TV5 has been an advocate for the victims of this disaster, and tonight we have assembled dozens of people who are here to help us, to talk about your lives, how you've been affected, and what can be done to make it right.
And we will start things off tonight by showing you the day-to-day reality of life without a safe source of water.
Good evening. Just over a year ago, a bottle of water was a luxury to the McLeod and Lauren family. Now cut to today, and they go through nearly 200 bottles just to get through their day.
Okay.
Preparing a meal.
It's been working pretty good so far.
Taking a bath.
Never thought that in a million years that we would be living off of bottled water to bathe with.
And even brushing their teeth, all done with a bottle of water. A glimpse of what everyday family life is like during the water crisis.
This is what we do on a daily basis. We use this to wash up, and then we turn around the next day and we wipe with baby wipes.
Baby wipes. Every other day, Kenneth McLeod says his family uses baby wipes to wash their entire bodies to avoid depleting their supply of bottled water.
1 pack will probably last us half a day.
A daily routine much different than it was 2 years ago when water flowed freely from the tap before everything changed and families became dependent on bottled water. Cases and cases of bottled water. You'll find them in every nook and cranny of this 2-story Flint home.
We had to take all the pantry stuff out to make room for water.
On average, this family of 6 uses 6 cases or 210 bottles every single day. That's 42 cases or 1,470 bottles of water every week. In 1 year, that's more than 76,000 bottles of water just for this one home. Sound excessive? Not to this family, scared, and for good reason, to let any part of their skin come in contact with the water from the tap.
The irritation of the skin, the constant itching, burning of the eyes when you get out of the shower.
Tammy Lauren says her youngest son, Jeremiah, has permanent reminders of just how unsafe it is.
After the red spots and bumps went away, now he's scarred like this all over his body.
But the scars and even the inconvenience of their newfound way of bottled water life can't take away the pain a parent feels knowing their child is suffering something even more serious.
I hit my lowest point when we all had a powwow and realized and everything came to reality, and it really hit us. My youngest son broke down crying, and after we read his high levels.
High levels of lead in the blood of all 4 of their young boys. Lead known to profoundly affect children's growth, behavior, and intelligence, causing violent behavior and learning disabilities over time.
As a parent, you're helpless in a way, you know? You don't know what to tell them.
That's devastating as a parent, knowing there's nothing you can do.
But they know something can be done and say it's time for that something to happen.
We've shed so many tears. We're teared out.
I'm beyond pissed off.
Now fighting together as a family and a community.
The neighborhood, when they run low on water, what we do is we usually put some on a dolly and we share what we have.
Until every dangerous drop is flushed away and new service lines are put in place, they're staying put, counting down the days and empty bottles until life returns to what it once was before the Flint water crisis.
As long as we can keep ourselves healthy until this is over, this is home. This is home.
To really understand the magnitude of this, check out this bag. These are crushed water bottles. This is just 1 week for this family. They hope they don't have to keep living like this much longer. In Flint, David Custer, WNEM TV5.
Thanks a lot, David. When you talk about families that have been affected, I want to introduce you to a mother, along with a son who have been affected by the Flint water crisis.
The rashes, they blister up. They pus out once he gets in the water, and then they blister up real bad and they turn red.
That's Ariana Hawk and her son, Sincere. They became very famous because they were the national face of the crisis when they appeared on the cover of Time magazine. That happened in January. And joining me right now is Ariana Hawk and, of course, my man, Sincere. How you doing, Sincere? You're doing good? Just say yes. Good enough. Sounds good. You know, a lot of people are wondering all the attention that you received over the time. How has this affected your life? How has it affected him?
It's affecting us in a big way. Right now we stand with my mom because he don't like the water, and for him to be safely bathed, I'd rather move my family away from the situation. So
you know, Sincere is here, but you have other children as well who have been in this situation to the point that you are fearful for what is going on. You have a little daughter. I've been at the home. You have your son, and of course your little son who's the basketball player, LeBron James of the future. But tell me, how has it been for you dealing with your children?
It's been difficult. I mean, it's something that I'm coping with and trying to deal with. But as far as life on an everyday basis, is hard.
One of the things I know for Sincere, it's been the rashes. I told you that I had those rashes as well. Where are we now? Because he looks a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, we've been gone now from the city for about 2 months. Since I had my baby, we've been gone. So, I mean, his skin has cleared up dramatically since we've been at my mom's house. And, I mean, I know now, you know, that's what it's from that water.
I know one of the things that you and I have talked about off camera, and you said, Ronnie, I was so concerned about the child that I was carrying. Give us an update medically. If there was lead found in the system, I know that was one of the things that you were so scared about and frightened.
Yeah, he had a low lead level when he was born, something that I was scared about, you know, because he's a newborn. But as of today, he's pretty okay.
You guys are no longer here in the city, from what I understand. But at the same time, I know your heart goes out to every mother and every child who has had elevated high blood levels of lead in their system, people who are conscious of what is going on with the water. What would you say to them right now today?
Just keep hope alive, you know, like come to these meetings, you know, stay on top of everything, you know, don't give up. I mean, I don't want to give up. I still got my house in the city, but I just got to do what's good for these kids.
Is the city, the state, and those involved doing enough in your opinion?
Honestly, no. I would say no, because I mean it's been 2 years going on 3 in a minute, and we still in the same situation that we've been in. The only thing that's better is the fact that we getting bottled water. But who want to live like that, you know?
Good enough. You know, before we leave, you know, last time I saw you, young brother, you told me TV5. Can you do me a TV5 at that camera right there and say TV5?
TV5.
My man, Sincere Smith. Once again, Ariana, thank you so much for joining us. I know it was a lot, of course, for you to join us and to be here, but you said to me earlier, you said this is important. Why is this so important to you?
I mean, we got to get more awareness to the situation and bring awareness to what's going on with the kids and how the long-term impact is going to be on them.
Tell you what, you guys have spoken, and the people are listening. Now let's go to Colette. Colette?
Thank you, Ronnie, for that. Now we turn to the man whose work exposed the danger of Flint's water, Dr. Mark Edwards from the Virginia Tech University. He joins us live via Skype. You have been so helpful in the past. Thank you so much for being with us again, Dr. Edwards.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. Now, you've talked about the pipes in Flint are healing now that the water is being treated properly. Can you explain to our viewers what you mean when you talk about the pipes are healing?
Yes, I mean, the pipes have been coated by a phosphate corrosion inhibitor after decades of being on Detroit water, and that coating just disappeared over the period of 18 months we were on the Flint River water. And so it's going to take a certain amount of time for that coating to reform and to protect the water from the pipe so that the lead stays on the pipe and out of the water.
Now, that seems like a process. What can you say? There are a lot of people out there that need some reassurance to reassure the people that the water that comes out of their pipe will be completely safe to drink.
Well, it's not safe right now. I mean, everyone still should keep using the bottled water and the filters. We're all erring on the side of caution. By some standards, you know, it could be considered safe now, but I mean, we're applying a very high standard here, and no one's going to say this water's safe until it really is meeting the federal standard. And that might take a month, it might take 3 months, it might take 6 months, but you know, until we're absolutely sure that it's meeting federal standards, no one's going to claim the water's safe.
And Dr. Edwards, you talk a lot about it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight. Reassure the people that, you know, you are working towards an end and you are doing all that you can, but they need some reassurance because they're confused, they're upset because it is taking so long.
Well, I mean, we have precedents in Washington, D.C., where, you know, the same sort of thing happened. They tried to do something good there, and it caused 3 years of lead in water. And it actually took 2 years in D.C. before the lead levels dropped back down. And in other cities, it took 9 months. So we're about 6 months into this from the time we switched back to Detroit Water, and I think we're on our way. And I think if residents follow that flushing program that EPA recommended to try to get clean water through the system and kind of clean out some of those loose deposits, that could really put us down the road close to the time when the water is considered safe by federal standards or meeting the same standards as other cities at least.
And Dr. Edwards, you know, I have to commend you for all the residents here in Flint, for the whole community, the state. They appreciate, and we all appreciate your continued support and dedication. Thank you for joining us tonight, Dr. Edwards.
Well, my hat's off to everyone in Flint. Keep fighting, guys.
Thank you. And coming up next, we look at how we got to this point and talk with some of the people who helped us get here. Later on, we'll hear from some of the heroes of the crisis. And if you have questions you want to ask our panel, just post them to our Facebook page. We will try to get to them. Stick around. There's a lot more ahead.
It's kind of hard for me to pay 2 bills. The water bill and going out to buy water. I'm on a fixed income.
It kind of makes me feel like I'm living in a third world country.
You can keep saying it's a problem, but if you don't come up with a solution, then it doesn't make sense.
You done messed up, stepped in it, and it's stinking.
People begging in the United States of America for clean drinking water that they pay for. Are you kidding me?
I'm beyond pissed off.
And a lot of anger in Flint 2 years ago today began a dark chapter in the city's history.
The day Flint began using their own water for a water supply. 3, 2, 1. That moment ended 5 decades of buying water from Detroit. The move was expected to save millions, but soon residents began complaining.
I can't get it close enough to get a drink because I can't hack the smell of it.
And they didn't like its taste or appearance, and tests indicated slightly elevated levels of lead, but residents were told not to worry. Then just last September, a major announcement.
Doctors discovered a spike in the numbers of our kids with dangerous levels of lead in their systems. Lead that was leaching from service lines, damaged by the river's corrosive water soon after. Governor Snyder told Flint to switch back to the water from Detroit.
Now then in January, emails released by Snyder showed members of his administration knew about Flint's problems long before they became public. A controversy has since engulfed his administration, led to high-level resignations at state and federal levels, and prompted congressional hearings, including EPA officials. Governor Snyder and the man many in Flint blame.
In the midst of all of this crisis, I must tell you that I believe that I have been unjustly persecuted.
Straighter for that area.
And that was Darnell Early, the emergency manager when the city flipped the switch. He says was signed on by the emergency manager who preceded him. In the end, a lot of finger pointing. The city knew it was pumping corrosive water. Its overseer, the state DEQ, knew this but did nothing. And the DEQ's oversee, the EPA, ignored warnings about Flint's water from one of its own employees and accused the DEQ of misleading it.
Joining me right now is Melanie McElroy. And Melanie, when we talk about these troubled waters here in Flint, you come from a different perspective. Tell us why.
What Common Cause has brought to the perspective is we started a petition early in the year requesting that the governor release relevant documents to the situation, and that public pressure is what initially started this email dump. Many of them were redacted, they were picked and chosen, and our ultimate conclusion is what we really need is a complete overhaul of the Freedom of Information Act here in Michigan and anti-corruption laws all around, and that would make documents like these, like other schedules, memos, from the governor's office accessible to the public so they could get to the bottom of what happened here and hopefully prevent it from happening elsewhere.
It has almost been a train wreck that we really can't find the tracks. With that being said, what has the progress been like?
Well, I think the governor's starting to listen. We have seen several of these email dumps, but what it's really going to take is for him to admit that we need change at the fundamental level, change to anti-corruption laws. We need to look at our emergency manager laws here in Michigan, and he really needs to work with us to hold those accountable.
What are your thoughts of the governor drinking the Flint water, at least the pledge to do it for the next 30 days?
We heard about the governor's pledge, and then we heard that he'll actually be in Europe for a majority of the time of that month that he pledged. So I think that his pledge could be much more useful if it was to get new pipes for the people of Flint, if it was to pass anti-corruption laws, or to work for other government reforms. And right now it's just a PR stunt that I don't think people appreciate.
Once again, Melanie, we thank you so much for joining us. Now we'll turn things over to Colette, who's standing by with the guests. Colette?
Thank you, Ronnie, for that. We are now joined by Melissa Mays. You have undoubtedly seen her all over the news. You are one of the loud voices in this crisis. Now, what were your thoughts when you heard about these charges?
The charges, well, the first thing I looked at the names, and yes, definitely the two state employees were hands-on with the cover-up, actually instructing, Mike Glasgow to cover up and change the forms and to hide the lead. They directed him to send low levels to keep from hitting an action level that would let the public know that there was a lead problem. So I thought that basically he's starting from the bottom and hopefully moving his way up, and I hope that they tell us who told them what to do.
And Melissa, a lot of people out there want to know, who do you ultimately blame for this crisis?
Definitely the MDEQ, because they were hands-on with not telling them to use corrosion control. I mean, Mike Glasgow did speak out from the very beginning saying, hey, this is against my direction. And also, you're looking at the governor's office. There's no way that they didn't know, they didn't act, and they covered up so much, which is just unbelievable to me because they're human beings, or at least I thought they were. So definitely I blame the state government over everyone.
Reflecting on this 2-year anniversary, Melissa, is the progress fast enough?
Not at all. No, we need pipes out of the ground. We need medical care. I mean, I've met with families that are way more ill than we are. My son just went through blood testing today for H. pylori, which is an unbelievable thing at 13. And so we don't have the medical care. We don't have the assistance here. And if you're over the age of 6, you're really not getting that much attention. And I'm watching my kids struggle and so many other families in the same way. No, it's nowhere near fast enough.
And people do want to know, Melissa, how are your children?
They're struggling. They're struggling in school. Their grades are consistently dropping. And then tomorrow my baby has to go in for H. pylori tests and x-rays to check out their bones and their joints, and they have to be tested for autoimmune disorders now too.
So it is an ongoing process.
An ongoing struggle. It's sad.
What do you hope?
I just hope that other cities and states look at what's happened to us and say, okay, when you put profit over people, people get sick and people have died. So people need to treat water properly, and they cannot cut corners when it comes to delivering safe, clean, and affordable water to the residents.
Melissa, thank you so much for joining us, and keep being that loud, strong voice that you are throughout the country. Thank you so much. Ronnie, over to you.
We're back with Ariana Hawk, and when you hear that from Melissa Mays, your heart has to go on.
Yeah, go out to her.
You know, when you know that you're not fighting this alone, and you can talk about Melissa, you can talk about Leanne Walters. All mothers understand this fight more so than anyone. Can you explain?
It's something that, you know, you have to deal with. You know, you got to look at the kids and you got to see the hurt in their eyes and the pain it brings to them brings the pain on you. You know, it's not no easy job being a parent to kids going through this problem.
A problem that, as a mom, now I believe there are 4 for you, correct?
Correct.
When you found out that this would no longer be your residence, talk about that relief to me. I know you've left. You have not left your heart with the people who are here, but talk about the relief knowing that when he goes to drink some water in the hot summertime or the spring, what is it going to be like?
It's better. You know, he's not terrified of the water. He used to be terrified of it. Now he's used to it. He want to take a bath. He want to do the things that kids could do with the water, the stuff that the kids in the city can't do now because they can't drink out the faucets, you know. So me moving my family, you know, they can enjoy life a little bit better.
Good enough. Ariana Hawk, once again, we thank you so much for joining us. Back to Colette.
Thank you, Ronnie, for that. Now a look at another legal fight. All of those class action lawsuits. I'm joined now by Julie Hurwitz. Talk to me about the progress that's being made with the class action lawsuits.
Well, we are at the phase of this litigation where the judge is now going to decide which cases need to be consolidated with which other cases. And just today, we filed another claim under the Federal Tort Claims Act against the EPA for their negligence, in failing to respond to the information they had as early as October 2014 about the dangers of this water. Miguel del Toral, one of the EPA investigators, tried to blow the siren and tried to ring the bell as loud as he could, and his superiors and those above him and those within the MDEQ, we believe, colluded to prevent his information from becoming public, which is that they were not treating this water, that the water in the city of Flint was poisonous. The emergency manager, I heard reference to the need to revisit the emergency manager law, in addition to representing the victims of this environmental tragedy and mass injustice. I'm also involved in a federal lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of the emergency manager law. If you look to the source, it's the state of Michigan. The emergency managers were appointed by and given unlimited power to make unilateral decisions without any checks and balances, as the governor's own task force, which he hand-selected, found that there was a complete absence of a democratic process, and that's what caused this tragedy and this horrific injustice to occur.
Yeah, and what's surprising to me is you keep saying every day you're seeing more and more people joining these class action lawsuits.
Absolutely. In fact, just today I spent 3.5 hours with a family, a young family with 5 children. The father was a skilled millwright, making a very good living, and after being exposed to this water, he is now severely neurologically disabled. He's got to go apply apply for Social Security disability. His children are suffering horrifically. They have been reporting that since the switch to the water, these are children ages 1 month to 10 years old, and their grades are going down, their behavior patterns are starting to be affected, their ability to learn, their ability to interact socially are all being seriously affected, and that was just today.
Sure, and this is happening every single day. So if people are still interested in getting involved and getting into this class action lawsuit, how can they do it? How can they apply? How can they contact you?
They can contact the Flint Water Class Action, Flint Water Legal Class Action.
FlintWaterClassAction.com.
Thank you.
There you go, Melissa. Who's everywhere.
Flint Water.
Thank you.
ClassAction.com website, and there are telephone numbers that you can call. There is a questionnaire you can fill out, and we have an office open in Flint full-time now at 1176 Thank you, Robert T. Longway Boulevard.
And we will put all of this information on our website, WNEM.com, so if people want to get this information, they can look on our website for that and our Facebook page as well.
Yes,
Julie,
absolutely.
thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And good luck to you.
Thank you.
Ronnie?
Thanks a lot, Colette. We'll take another look, and we'll take a quick break. And when we return, we're going to be talking with some heroes of the crisis. And a little later, we'll share some testing results with you and talk with a federal emergency response official. We will be right back.
No, that was absolutely inaccurate, what was reported. And again, in terms of making allegations along those lines, I didn't delay anything.
Gotcha. Congressman Kildee is accusing you of using taxpayer dollars to use private attorneys. What's your response to that?
Again, a lot of people have a lot of words. Again, we're going through the appropriate legal processes.
Two years of outrage. 2 years of finger pointing.
I'm not buying that you didn't know about any of this until October 2015.
2 years of pleading for a basic human necessity.
We want clean water.
2 years of tough questions.
Have you ever given any thought ever to resigning?
What does the future hold for Mid-Michigan's largest city and the people who are drinking water poisoned with lead? TV5 presents a special town hall discussion. The Flint water crisis, looking to the future.
And welcome back to our special discussion on the Flint water crisis. If you're just tuning in, we've been talking with people who live day to day with tainted water, and some of the people who are sounding the alarm early on.
One of those people is a pediatrician who's becoming a leading spokesperson for the most vulnerable people in Flint. And her patients basically know her is Dr. Mona.
Hey, Flint's doing some really innovative, awesome things.
This was the first time we all met Dr. Mona Hanna-Attisha. It was last August, and the pediatrician had just opened the doors at the new Children's Hurley Hospital and Farmers Market in downtown Flint. Only 6 weeks later,
This is something that is preventable. This is something that causes lifelong problems.
she was the first in the medical community to sound the alarm that the water that people complained about because of its odor and discoloration was in fact poisoning them with lead.
Medically, it's unacceptable.
From that day, she has led the charge, bringing awareness the issues affecting thousands of Flint residents. She appeared on CNN, MSNBC, and other networks, and was even called to testify on Capitol Hill.
As a pediatrician, my job is to take care of the kid in front of me, but my job is to make sure that they have the brightest future ahead of them. But we need your help.
Dr. Mona is now head of the Pediatrics Public Health Initiative, which will track children exposed to lead for the next 20 years.
And I'm not going to stop kind of fighting for these kids.
And that unwavering dedication won Dr. Mona the hearts of the people she serves.
You can hear the way that she is viewed in this town. Spontaneous standing ovation for Dr. Mona.
Pretty extraordinary woman, something you may not know about Dr. Mona. Time magazine says she's one of the most influential people in this country. As a matter of fact, she's number 20. But when you talk about some of the top women in this country, she's in the top 5. Now, over to my number 1, especially anchor, it's Colette Ford.
Thank you, Ronnie. Wonderful. I am now joined by Genesee County Health Department, your Mark Valachek. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, you are seeing the faces of the Flint water crisis daily.
Absolutely.
What is it the health department doing to help the residents out?
Well, there are a number of programs that we've initiated. We're doing blood lead testing in conjunction with our WIC clinic for children. We also have a clinic downtown where we do adults who aren't able to get tested in their doctor's offices. We recommend that testing be done in the doctor's office, but if it's not available, they can come to the health department. In addition, we're expanding WIC services. Nutrition is a critically important element in terms of remediating lead, and the WIC program will be expanding to the Hurley Farmers Market Clinic starting next month. So we're looking forward to expanded WIC services, and we want to do more outreach to make people aware of the WIC program and the benefits that it can bring to this community.
And Mark, you talked about nutrition being so important. What are other concerns that you're seeing the residents?
Well, another concern is we're getting into the warmer weather months, and as many people are aware, we also had a problem with Legionella the past 2 years. So we will be doing more testing to try and determine if there's any association with the water. In addition, we're doing some preventive work with high-risk buildings to try and use new engineering standards that have just been produced and roll them out in the community in a pilot project.
I want to just go back to Legionnaire's disease. You know, people hear that and they're nervous. They don't know what to do, how to protect themselves. What would you say the first step is when it comes to Legionella?
Well, Legionella is a type of bacteria. It can't be transmitted from person to person. It's typically associated with aspiration or inhalation of the bacteria from a water source, and it very often results in pneumonia. So one of the things we want to make sure that anyone with signs and symptoms of pneumonia is tested for Legionella.
Okay, that's great. And you can head over to the Genesee County Health Department for more information on that. Thank you so much, Mark, for joining us. Ronnie.
We're sitting here and standing with perhaps one of the most significant women in this crisis. She's Leanne Walters. Your twins have been affected, your children and your family. You're the whistleblower. Had it not been for you, maybe we're not here today. But when we see the progress or lack thereof, your thoughts?
I think it's time we need to step up our game and do more. That's why we've initiated the creation of the nonprofit that we put out today.
Talk to me more about that, because you had a major press conference here today. You had a lot of people who were there to see it. But for people who don't know, inform them.
Well, for the people that are being forgotten in the loopholes of system, the kids over the age of 6, the families that are struggling with the spend downs and the healthcare costs that they're being responsible for, we've started this nonprofit to where we're starting a national campaign for it, so that we can turn around and give that money to the citizens and help with that cost. And we're doing it with complete transparency.
You've had testimony on Capitol Hill. You have testimony here. Talk to me about your biggest frustration in the lieu of all of this and how we continue to get leaks, but not a flood of help.
That right there is the biggest frustration, is the fact that it's leaks and not a flood. And the state and the federal government needs to step up, and they need to take care of what's happened. We did not cause this, and we continue to suffer.
Leanne, bring us up to date on your children and their status, because I know that sometimes when we talk about Gavin, it brings tears to your eyes because of the simple fact of where he is and where he should be at this point in his life.
My children are still struggling on a daily basis. They're getting diagnosed with new things all the time and related to lead. I won't go into detail right now because I'm not crying for you, Ronnie.
Yeah.
But, you know, my older kids are also been diagnosed with a few things too that we're working on. So it's one day at a time.
What annoys you the most about people who try to take advantage of this crisis, of putting themselves in a position that they need the attention, but at the same time, the proper attention is not going to the right people?
I think it's harmful to the cause, and it shouldn't be about any individual. It should be about the community as a whole and what's best for the community. And bad information or bad publicity is not going to help what we're doing.
Someone wants to get involved in what you're doing, in your charge. How do they get in contact with you?
We have a webpage. It is cdoflint.com, where our webpage is up. And that's the same thing as our Facebook page. It's CDO Flint. And we also have a Twitter, same thing.
Leanne Walters, once again, always a pleasure.
Thank you, Ronnie.
And I'm never going to make you cry. I'm just going to make you think. All right, back to Colette.
Thank you, Ronnie, for that. Another key person in bringing Flint to the forefront is Mayor Karen Weaver. Last year, she was Dr. Weaver. Now she's the mayor, and she's been beating the drums to get state and federal help for the city. I talked with her about the progress Flint's made and what the city needs to do to get past its current problems. We reflect on this 2-year anniversary to take off your mayor's hat. How far have we come? Do you see that we have progressed? Is Flint moving forward?
For us to be living this way 2 years later, that's just an injustice, and it makes no sense. We still have homes that are testing extremely high for lead. We know we have pregnant and nursing moms. We know we have kids under the age of 6, seniors, people with compromised immune systems. We're telling them to drink bottled water. So when that's all we can do, we can't shower in it. People don't want to bathe in that.
Fast forward 2 years. Some pipes have been replaced. Many say not fast enough.
I agree.
You've gotten financial assistance. A lot of people say not enough. Families are still uprooted. Their daily routines have changed drastically. What needs to be done? What's the next step?
The only way we're going to get this issue resolved and be able to keep people in the city of Flint and bring people to the city of Flint and keep businesses and attract new businesses is to get we need new infrastructure. To know that we have that rainy day fund that the governor has, and we haven't gotten anything. To know that the federal government sent, I don't know if it was 80 or 88 million this way to the state for infrastructure, and we haven't gotten any of it. To know that we have Senator Mike Lee in Utah holding up money coming to the citizens of Flint is, you know, it's just incomprehensible, not only to me, but to the citizens.
The governor came here. He filled up some jugs of Flint water. He's taking it back. He said he's going to drink it for a while. What are your thoughts on that? Does that help?
I don't know what the big deal is about that. I don't know what point that proves. We're not impressed with that. We wish that we had known to drink filtered water 2 years ago. If you really want to know what our situation is firsthand, come and live here.
And we are joined now by State Representative Sheldon Neely. Thank you so much for joining us. You are another loud voice in the community in this Flint water crisis. What's happening in Lansing? People want to know. What is going on there? Is the urgency still there?
Well, the urgency has always been there, especially for the Democratic Party. We've been moving this forth since June of 2015. We've had a water accountability package putting forth some good legislation for the full state of Michigan to protect residents throughout the full state of Michigan, especially here in my hometown, Flint, Michigan. But that legislation has kind of been stalled, but it has picked up a little energy last week. But it's never too soon to get this crisis under control. We're in the second extension extension of an emergency, so they really have to redefine really what an emergency really means. And so we're really trying to really fight. I'm fighting for my family. I'm fighting for my children, my wife, and my mother, we all still live here in the city as well.
That's right. And we're reflecting on this 2-year anniversary. Progress has been slow, many of the residents are saying. What are you hearing from your constituents, and what do you hope happens?
Well, I hope that this real sense of urgency really takes hold of those who are holding the reins for relief to come forth. We're looking at people trying to monetize and exploit this crisis. You know, we probably have maybe 80 GoFundMe pages, a lot of donations to a lot of worthwhile philanthropic organizations, but the relief effort is really not translating to the people. The people are still on bottled water after 3 months. We're still bathing, and as you guys showed it earlier in the package here in your broadcast about how people are still suffering as a byproduct of this. Relief is supposed to be here, but it's not translating to the relief effort of the residents inside the city.
So 2 years out, progress is slow, frustration is high. The next 2 years, what are your thoughts on that? You're hoping to see what? What's next?
Well, my prayer is this, and I'm a prayerful person. My prayer is that this, crisis will be relieved at some point in time, that the resilience of this community and those people that's inside of it will find a way to really survive, and we'll start bringing this community back. But we cannot do so if we don't have genuine efforts on the other side. The governor and the administrative staffs have to put relief in the right places. We really need to start replacing these pipes sooner than later.
And those in your district, what do you hear from them on a daily basis?
Well, I hear the cries from the mothers, the cries from the parents and the children as well. And so my heart breaks because we're really trying to do everything that we can. We're here on a municipal level, on a state level, from the legislative point, from the representatives, and also from the federal level with our great state Congressman Dan Kildee. We have been really working very hard, and so we need the support of those that's in the majority in Lansing.
Thank you for speaking with us. We appreciate that, and keep speaking out for the residents of Flint. And speaking of Dan Kildee, Ronnie?
Well, thanks a lot. When you look at the word passion in the dictionary, it may give you a different definition. But if you want a live one, all you have to do is talk to Dan Kildee in regards to what is happening. United States Congressman, what is the latest from Washington, D.C.? And as many people keep asking as they see you in the street, where's the money?
Well, the president has stepped up with some help, but it's not nearly enough. I mean, the Department of Labor has come in with some money. We've expanded Medicaid, although the legislature hasn't approved that yet. Congress needs to act. I mean, we need to have a response to this crisis that is equal to the gravity of the crisis. And the biggest concern that I have is that whether it's in Lansing or some of the efforts in Washington, that it not be a situation where money that sounds like a lot of money, a few million here and a few million there, allow some folks who really don't want to offer support that is big enough to really solve this problem, to allow them to sort of check the box and say, well, we've covered things in Flint. To me, the response from the state government and those Republicans like Mike Lee that we're trying to overcome in the federal government, the response feels a lot like the conditions that led to this crisis in the first place. Flint is secondary in their thinking. The people of Flint, they have marginalized. So in some ways, the slow response feels a lot like what caused this whole thing in the first place.
You speak of Senator Mike Lee out of Utah. He is public enemy #1 to many of the people who are aware of who he is here in Flint, Michigan. When you hear about what has taken place, what is the bottom line? What is taking this man so long to check the yes box?
Well, when it comes to whether it's Senator Mike Lee or somebody else, I actually hold the leadership in the Senate responsible. I mean, they have ways to get around a single senator that chooses to hold up legislation. I mean, the bill that he's holding up is a transparency bill that I authored that would require the EPA to blow the whistle whenever they have data that shows that there are lead levels in water. We added a couple $100 million, most of which would come to Flint, to that legislation. We got it paid for, and Mike Lee was still against it. The Republican leadership of the Senate can get around Mike Lee if they choose to. So we can't have people use an extreme voice like Senator Lee as an excuse to not use all the tools that they have to get Flint the help that it needs.
What concerns you about the Attorney General and the 3 individuals who have been charged thus far? And how forward do you look to the DOJ, Department of Justice, coming in here and having their own investigation as to what has fallen down? in the city of Flint?
Well, I never prejudge criminal investigations. I think the facts need to lead the investigators where they may. The concern that I have is that while there are individuals who will be charged, I have to ask the question, who are they answering to? Who was giving them the direction? Or worse, and this is where it goes straight to the governor, who created the culture, the environment in state government that made that sort of approach to a public health question of clean drinking water acceptable? So whether that is leading to criminal charges or not, responsibility lies with the person who created the culture in government that says that that kind of behavior, that kind of sort of capricious application of the law is okay. It's not okay.
Congressman Dan Gildy, once again, always a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.
I wish we had more time. Now let's go back to Colette.
Thank you, Ronnie. Coming up, improving numbers on those Sentinel sites in Flint. We'll also hear from the EPA about what they're seeing at ground level and find out how the crisis is impacting student recruitment. We'll be right back.
Some people are concerned the water is not safe. How do you respond to that?
The water is safe. The DEQ has given us that assurance, and we test daily to make sure that it is safe.
We didn't test it right before, so what makes you believe that they're going to test it right now?
Not a day or night goes by that this tragedy doesn't weigh on my mind.
It is as if we really don't matter to those in power, but Flint lives matter.
Flint lives matter. Flint lives matter. Flint lives matter. Flint lives matter.
Yes. And it.
And welcome back. We do have some good news about Flint's water.
The final round of water testing, Centennial sites in Flint, is showing some definite improvement. Let's take a look at the numbers. 93.5% of the samples were or below the federal action level of 15 parts per billion. 6.5% were above that level.
Now, this was the 5th test in a row where the good numbers were up and the bad numbers were down. We're now joined by Mark Durno, on-site EPA. Tell us, what is going on ground level?
Ground level, we've been on the ground sampling and evaluating the system since January. Okay. And what we're seeing is, as reported, the levels are improving in the water mains. Some of the lead line numbers seem to be improving in the service line. Now we're focused on what's happening in the homes. One of the chief concerns that we have are all the particles of lead that have built up within the infrastructure inside the homes. and what's happening there. And when we collect samples from the water inside homes, we see this particle lead throwing those lead levels really high and coming into people's homes. So one of the things that we're emphasizing the community to do in the very near future is to flush your lines. And let's start moving those particles out of the plumbing in the homes and wash them down the drain so we can get closer to that recovery state.
Yeah, and you speak about the lead service lines. Is there a clear picture of about how many there are in the city?
It's not. The estimate that we've seen is about 10,000 lead lines. The tricky part with the lead lines is we don't always see them coming into the house. Many times we see the lead lines only coming from the water main to the service box, and that's all underground, so we can't see that. And the historical records just don't give us a true indication of how many lead lines are there. We've heard numbers in the ranges of 10,000 plus out of 30,000 homes in Flint, so again, we don't have an exact number.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to use your crystal ball right now and predict a little bit about how long it's going to take to replace all of these. I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds. So what needs to be done, and how long is the timeline in your estimation?
Right. I don't know what the timeline would be for lead line replacement. That's going to be a factor of money and plans. And so far, those plans have not been developed fully, and then money has to follow. But what we can tell you is at the end of June, we'll be looking for the state of Michigan to be providing data to evaluate how close they are in compliance with the lead and copper rule. When they get into compliance with the lead and copper rule, then we can start talking about next steps.
And you know, the frustration with the residents, it is taking so long to get these lines replaced. What would you say to reassure them or to appease their concerns that they're having?
Well, the first thing we have to do is make sure these pipes are properly treated. The lead line replacement would be a long-term outlook. The mid-term outlook is to get these pipes recoated so that we can get to a drinkable state with the water. Then, after we get to a drinkable state with the water, then we have to get to a more sustainable situation here in Flint. And that's when things like infrastructure replacement come into place.
Next step, best case scenario, Mark?
Best case scenario, at the end of June, let's see what those numbers look like. And from there, we'll make you a better estimate.
And we do appreciate you stopping by. Thank you. Thank you. Ronnie, over to you.
Thanks a lot. I'm here with Dale Wayhill, who happens to be the Associate Vice President of Institutional Advancement over at Mott Community College. I would imagine this has been a tremendous strain on this region. I mean, there's Mott, there's Kettering, there's UFM Flint. When you talk about recruiting students, a parent wants to hear, is the water safe? How have you dealt with that?
I think one approach that we've had at Mott is to be very, very proactive. Our students and our staff and faculty and our visitors are our #1 concern. And so we've literally spent $500,000 since last fall making infrastructure improvements in the college and also doing testing of the water on a monthly basis. At Mott, we've put all that information up on our website. If you go to the mcc.edu, you'll see a masthead that reads Safe Campus Water Information. If you go there, you can see the testing results month by month, all sorts of information about external resources in the community for our students and our staff and our faculty, and also information about the hydration stations that we put in over the December break. In and of themselves, that was about $250,000 where we took out 65 drinking fountains all over our main campus, and we put in hydration stations which are all filtered, and they're designed to filter out lead and all of the other Michigan 10 elements that you're not supposed to have in your water. So we're doing everything that we can and being transparent. I think that's a key word that comes out of this whole situation, where you now have institutions of higher ed like Mott, U of M, and Kettering that are doing many, many things, putting a lot of money into it that we could be spending on education and student learning and student achievement, and devoting that to water. But people should rest assured that we are doing everything that we can going forward to make sure that the water's safe.
That becomes a concern, and you're doing a lot of things, but you have to be very proud of the job that Dr. Reynolds has been doing in pediatrics there. Everyone talks about Dr. Mona, but Dr. Reynolds has been equally as important when we talk about the Flint water crisis and his sincerity toward making sure we get to the bottom line of it.
Yeah, I think Dr. Reynolds at Mott Children's Health Center is another one of the heroes involved, and I know he was on the governor's self-appointed group by the governor that sort of came out with the report, and lots of recommendations from that, so we certainly appreciate his efforts.
Once again, Dale, we thank you so much for joining joining us and continue the great success that you are experiencing there at Mott.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, Colette, it's time to go back to you. It's
Thank you.
Facebook time.
Yeah, it sure is. Thank you, Ronnie. And we do have a lot of viewers asking questions on Facebook and concerns that they have. One of our questions that several viewers have, do you think people will ever drink Flint water again? Mark Balachek with the Genesee County Health Department. What do you say? Will we ever have clean, safe Flint water?
Well, I think one of the things that this has taught us is that everyone needs to know about their own internal plumbing system, have a better understanding of that we can't just assume because the water leaving the plant was safe that the water coming out of your tap is going to be safe. So it's really important for people to get their water tested. That's one of the very first steps. And I think it's going to be a while because of the need to replace the service lines and some of the other infrastructure replacements before people are going to feel comfortable drinking the water here in Flint.
Sure, but for right now, the recommendation is bottled water and filters, correct?
Right, and get your water tested.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you. Keep those questions coming into Facebook. Ronnie.
Melanie McElroy is back with us once again. Melanie, you've been here throughout the entire evening. What have you walked away with this town hall meeting?
It's been really great to put more faces to the names that we've heard in our community meetings, but it really just impassions me and empowers me to go back and continue fighting in Lansing. We've got a governor who wants taxpayers to pay his criminal defense bill instead of building new pipes and bringing these families the support that they need. So I definitely feel refreshed and ready to go back and continue to fight for the people of Flint and make sure that other partner organizations that we work with know the faces that are behind.
You know, when you talk about the passion that is starting to build up here in Flint, and unlike so many reporters who cover this story, I live here. I have to go through it each and every day. I'm talking about washing, I'm talking about brushing my teeth, whatever I have to do to use the water. When people sometimes on the outside, and I'm sure you're told, do you live in Flint? Do you drink the water? What do you tell them about basically what you're dealing with or your friends are dealing with at this time?
It's hard to illustrate because people can't imagine that this is legally happening to folks and that it has been happening for several years. I live in Detroit. We have our own struggles there. But I think it's been really helpful that finally national media outlets have come in and are starting to listen to these voices and the people of Flint. And what I continue to tell them, it's not that Flint doesn't have a voice. They have a very strong, loud voice. A lot of mothers, a lot of community organizers here on the ground are saying all the right things. We just didn't think the right people were listening. So anything that our organization nationally here in Michigan, here in Flint can do to help elevate those voices and get those to the right ears, I'm happy and willing to work as hard as needed.
Before we let you go, Melanie, I asked this question of Adriana, I asked the question of Leanne. If you could pinpoint the one thing that annoys you about this entire crisis, here we are on the anniversary of the second year, what is it?
I have to hark on the accountability piece, and a lot of folks are sick of the blame game, as I've heard it called, and want to move on. But I think that until we're able to hold people accountable, we can't prevent this from happening in other cities with emergency managers and who are struggling through some of the same crises.
We just don't want more people and good people moving away. Melanie, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. You know, when you talk about everything that has happened within Flint, it has been very interesting. And as we close out on this evening, I walk away with one particular thing. We've got to stop the troubled waters.
That's right.
We've got to find the bridge to success, and we've got to find a way to heal what has happened in this city.
We certainly do, and this hour has gone by so quickly. We want to thank all of our guests. Thank you so much for being here tonight and voicing your concerns and letting the people know what still needs to be done. 2 years as we reflect back, it has been slow progress.
Indeed, and if you tune in late and you want to watch part of this discussion, we will have it for you on our TV5 homepage in about an hour. For Colette, I'm Ronnie Duncan. We just want to thank you all, and once again, to all of our guests who came out. We will continue to fight here at TV5. We're not giving up. We want you to know we're behind you 100%. We will not stop the fight until everyone in Flint has safe, clean drinking water. Thank you.
Have a great night. Thank you so much for joining us.